Hi everybody. Wednesday evening, got another training for you. And the good news is tonight I'm not going to teach you anything. However, these 6 very short metaphors will teach you something. And if it does teach you something, if you could put in the comments what you've learned from either one of these 6 metaphors, I'd really appreciate it. Remember, we learn by doing, we learn by direct model, and we learn by stories. So, I want to tell you tonight the power of a story. I was lucky because I grew up and my mom would read to us when I was little. And I remember some of the stories. And my favorite was always Jack and the Beanstalk. Love that story. And it really kind of resonated with me because I came from a poor home. And there was times that some things fell on my shoulders. I had to go out. Of course, we didn't have a cow to sell. But if we would have, we probably would have sold it. Tonight I want to talk to you about the power of a story. Another story she used to read for us, Are You My Mother? And that was like about a little bird that, you know, he wakes up and he can't find his mother, so he's asking everybody that he runs into if they happen to be his mother. So tonight, let's start with the first metaphor. And this was back when Alexander the Great, obviously he was great, very tough ruler, and he had a horse that he had trained so well, and this horse was part of the reason he was so successful. But the horse needed shoes, so he took him to the blacksmith. And the horse was really well trained, generally speaking. But as he was waiting for the blacksmith to bring him in to shoe him, the horse got spooked and ran and just took off, jetted out of there. Well, the apprentice, he was just a young person, maybe 13, 14 years old, saw this horse run out and got on his horse and chased Alexander the Great's horse. Chased him for about 2 miles. Finally caught him, brought him back to Alexander the Great and to the blacksmith. And Alexander the Great said to the young apprentice, "Thank you very much, Captain." Promoted from apprentice at 13 to captain over 1 act. I grew up with a couple of guys that had relatives in the UP, or Upers, Ontonagon. And Ontonagon was famous for their Lumberjack of the Year contest. And one of the participants lived in my town. His name was Norm, really big guy. And he won Lumberjack of the Year 3 years in a row. And another guy who moved down and lived in my town, his name was Roy, real skinny guy. He didn't look much like a lumberjack at all. But however, these 2 guys made it to the finals. And now the day of the championship, it's for Lumberjack of the Year. It's Roy, the big 3-time winner Norm, the 3-time winner, versus Roy, the smaller guy, we'd call him the underdog. Well, at 7:30, they blow the whistle to start the competition, and Norm is there. He wants to win his 4th champion, 4-time crown. And he's there right on the money. He starts chopping wood at 7:30. 8:15, Roy gets there, and he's got his baby, he's got his lunch pail, his wife, and she kisses him goodbye, and he goes out there and he starts cutting wood around 8:15. About 10:30, they say, it's morning break if you guys want. And Norm's like, I'm not taking no break. And he's chopping wood because he's going for a 4-time champion. Roy says, hey, I think I will take a break and get a coffee and do a couple things. So he takes his break. And Norm's laughing. At lunchtime, Norm's sweating, but he's still working. And Norm's saying, I bet you that guy's going to take a lunch break. And Roy took a break. He went over and he made himself a sandwich. He's pouring another coffee, doing some other stuff. And then he goes back to cutting. 2 o'clock, he took another break. Roy took 3 breaks. So at the end of the day, they blew the whistle. I think it was around 3:30. They blew the whistle. They weighed all the wood. They counted it. And Norm's thinking, this is probably the easiest championship I've ever won. So they get on stage and they say, the winner of this year's Lumberjack of the Year is Roy. And Norm grabbed the microphone and he said, this is fixed. He said, this guy took 3 breaks. This guy didn't get here till 8:15. I've been out there cutting the whole time. And then Roy grabbed the mic and said, yes, but every break I sharpened my axe. You see, at the end of the day, 2 or 3 chops, the tree would fall for Roy. Norm was hitting trees 30 times with a blunt axe before they would fall. Sharp tools are a good idea. My Uncle Bob, I remember he found out I was going to Boulder, Colorado, and he's like, oh, you got to go to this stream. I caught the most trout I've ever caught in my whole life. And he says, I still have the map, you know, in my scrapbook. And he brought the map over, and it was kind of yellowed and it was old. But I said, I'm going to go. I'm going to follow this map, and I'm going to go there because I'm a big trout guy. I think I can do as good as he did. So that day I get my waders on and I'm walking, I'm following the map, and I keep following. It's starting to get a little slushy. I'm kind of mushy, and then pretty soon it's kind of like muck. Now I'm up to almost my waist in muck, and I can't move. And I'm trying not to get the map dirty and my pole dirty. And these duck hunters, they're like, they're blowing the whistle, they're trying to hunt duck, and they see me and they're going, what are you doing? I said, I'm following the map that my Uncle Bob gave me. They canoe over and they look at the map, they pull me up because I was so stuck. They pulled me up into the canoe and they looked at the map. He goes, about 5 years ago they put a road in. You can drive right back to that fishing hole now. Some of us are following 20-year-old maps when things have changed. But growing up was so fun, and we had a wise man that lived in our street. He was so wise. We'd go over there and we'd go, who's going to win today? And he would say, oh, it's not going to be the Lions. Or sometimes he would say, it's going to be the Wings, 4-2. And he would know the score. He was so wise. One day my buddy John came over, and John and I, we were always looking for an angle to get over on somebody. And he says, Tom, I know a way we can fool the wise man, prove him wrong. I'm like, you're kidding me. He's never wrong. He said, look, and he showed me in his hand, he had a baby bird. I said, John, that's cool, man. What are you going to do with that bird? He goes, well, we're going to go over to the wise man's house, and I'm going to put it behind my back, and I'm going to say, what do I have behind my back? I said, he'll never guess it. He says, yes, but if he does guess it, I'm going to ask him if it's dead or alive. And if he says dead, I'm going to show him that the bird's alive. If he says alive, I'm going to crush it, and then I'm going to show him that the bird's dead. Either way, we're going to fool him. I said, let's go, man. And we ran to his house. We knock on the door, and he goes, Tom, John, I see you guys are up to no good. We look at each other. He's really wise. And John goes, cut the small talk, old wise man. What do I got behind my back? And he says, my son, you have a baby bird behind your back. And I'm like, this is not going to end good. And he goes, yeah, but is it dead or alive? And I go, we got him. We got him. John outsmarted the wise man. And we're pretty happy with ourselves. And here's what the wise man said. He said, it's in your hands. And he shut the door. So I grew up and I had these kind of life lessons, you know, and I got into the limo business. I was a high roller. Man, I had a limousine. I had Hulk Hogan in it. I had Zig Ziglar. Then the big call came. Tom, can you get the Pope? He's got to be in Hamtramck by 2 o'clock. The Pope? The Pope? He's going to Hamtramck. Hamtramck is a Polish town. Was a Polish town. Now it's a lot of Muslims. But there's still a lot of Polish people there too. And back then, the Pope came into town. He's going to go to Hamtramck. So I pick him up at the airport. And I'm driving and I'm taking my time because I want to get him there safely. And he's rapping on the window. And I roll the window down. Bzzz, and I said, yes, Pope. He said, do you want me to get out and jog? He says, I've got to be there by 2 o'clock. He says, pull over. Let me drive. You get in the back. And he starts flying. I mean, he's going 75, 80 miles an hour. And that wasn't the speed limit. And we're on Telegraph. And we're heading towards 8 Mile. And we get pulled over. And the cop comes over. And he looks at the Pope and he goes, oh my God. I mean, he hurries up and And he looks back at me because I cracked the window in the back, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, what are you gonna do? And he goes, Chief, we got somebody big here. And the chief says, who is it? Is it an actor? He says, nope, bigger. He goes, a rock star? He goes, bigger. Sports star. We get them all the time speeding through here. He goes, bigger. And the chief goes, well, who is it, man? And the cop says, I don't know, but the Pope is his chauffeur. Did you ever jump to the wrong conclusion? Last one I'll finish up with is I've always loved zoos, and small zoos I enjoy. Like I used to love Traverse City Zoo. There's a zoo in Lansing. The Detroit Zoo, which is in Royal Oak, is phenomenal. But I always liked Toledo Zoo. And one year they were going to put a new polar bear exhibit in, and I was so excited because in this polar bear exhibit, you could buy a can of fish and throw it into this icy water, and the polar bears would slide in and grab it. That was the story I heard. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go down, and I'm going to be the first in line. And so they opened up that day, and the zookeeper comes over, and he says, you here for the polar bear exhibit? I said, yeah, man. I mean, I've been waiting. He said, well, you see the cement's not totally dry yet. We're not going to open it for 2 more weeks. I said, can I get one of those passes that I can go right to the front of the line? Because, I mean, I'm here 2 weeks early. He says, sure, we could do that. 2 weeks go by, and I'm down there. And me and my wife are down there, and I got the can of fish. I'm first in line, and I can hear the helicopter because they're going to come over, and they're going to take the cage off the polar bear. See, the polar bear has been kind of stuck in an 8-foot by 8-foot cage. And he's kind of turning circles, like checking things out. He's looking at me. He's looking at the new slide, the icy pond. And I'm thinking, this is going to be great. And the helicopter comes in, and they picks that big cage off of him, takes it out of the way, and I'm like stepping up. I'm next, man. Showtime. And I'm standing there, and I'm waiting for that polar bear to come over. And all he did was turn circles as if that cage was still on. He kept turning the same 8 by 8 circle. And it went on for hours. Then I said, you know what? I'm gonna leave the zoo. I mean, it's been hours. I heard that it took that polar bear 3 weeks to discover that there was a new pond, a new slide, and that he could get all the fish he wanted. Have you ever done that? Just turn the same circles when there's a whole new world out there. So those are 6 quick stories. 1 act, guy gets promoted. Lumberjack of the Year is the guy that sharpens his tools. The old map. The wise man saying it's in your hands. It's impacted me my whole life. And called for that assignment of taking the Pope, giving him the wheel, and then being mistaken for somebody that was very famous. Fun stuff. And then turning the old circles. So let these metaphors resonate, see what you get out of them, and put them in the comments. Have a great day.